Hey folks, Dr. O here. Hope you're well. I wanted to talk about a subject for those of you that happen to be developing a brand, starting a business, possibly in a business, using marketing, social media, email campaigns, basically putting yourself out there to provide a service and give value to people. If you're in that headspace, whether it's a product or a service, and you're kind of in a space where you're going out and presenting what you do to audiences or just even through social media, Instagram, Facebook, etc. I just thought I'd cover this subject with you. And it basically follows the theme of the higher the monkey climbs, the more the bum is exposed. And that is a phrase that I've used for years. I learned it from somebody in my past years. This is probably about 25 years ago. And I laughed when I heard it. Actually, it's told to me by a West Indian man, the more the bat is exposed. And the philosophy here is that as you go out into the world and you start to share things with people and build a business and you create something, whether it's giving value to people through a service or product or whatever, there are always going to be people that are unhappy with whatever you're offering or some approach that you've used. And the late, great Wayne Dyer said, you cannot control everybody else's opinion of you. If you've got 1,000 people in a room, some people will love you and there's going to be other people that dislike you profusely because of the fact that every human being has a different perception of the world. You can go and see one movie, love it, come out, speak to a friend of yours, and they saw the same movie and they thought it was crap. If anybody's had this experience, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I think this is fascinating because the higher the monkey climbs, the more the bum is exposed. So if you're starting a business right now, or you're looking to develop a business, and you've experienced this or experiencing it, don't let it put you off. You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. And I struggle with this for freaking years. And I mean years. And just to put this in perspective, when I go out and speak throughout the world, whether it's here or UK, and I've worked with different organizations, I've had people come up to me and say, I Googled this business and I've read this and I saw somebody write this, etc., etc. And I go, I remember I was doing stuff with Robert Kiyosaki for many, many years. I've read this about Robert Kiyosaki and I read this, and I used to teach for them as an organization and do property courses, and people go, I read it's a scam and blah, blah, blah. And I used to say, well, who do you work for? And they go, I work for this company or this company. And then I'd look it up and I'd go, boom, and all this stuff would come up, scam stuff about the company they're working for. And I'd say to them, you know what, maybe you should just go into work on Monday and hand in your resignation because you're working for an organization that's a scam company. It's not a scam company. I've been working with them for the last 5 years. I know. And that's what your perception of it is, but there's other people writing this. So what's the truth? I know they do this and they're great and they do this. And I said, I know, but look, there's always going to be somebody out there that's pissed off, had a bad experience or a perceived bad experience, or just that's who they are. Some people just bitch and moan and complain, and that's built in their nature. So I thought I'd show you a few, some thumbs up coming up here, so it's good to see that. So look at this. So let me pull up, I've got some images here which I've just pulled in from the internet. Let's do this one. Richard Branson. Look at this. Scam, scam, scam. If you look up to the right or wherever it is above my head here, let me just come into here. Where am I? There we go. Look. Negative scam stuff about Richard Branson. You go, yeah, well, you can understand it. Virgin is bound to, but yeah, okay, so let's pick somebody else. How about Gandhi? Look at this. Sex scandal. Gandhi. Changed the world. Richard Branson arguably changed the world in so many different ways, whether it's through flight, through the record industry, when he changed the whole philosophy around records, when they brought out Virgin. Look at this. This is Mahatma Gandhi scam. So then I found this one. And I found this a few years back, and I showed it to somebody on my live audience, and they were like, oh my God, Mother Teresa's like a saint. Yep, there's even stuff here about Mother Teresa. So, yeah, you know what? You get what you focus on. Sometimes people are just inherently negative. Give me a thumbs up if you've experienced that. That's just who they are. And they look for shit. It's happened to me. I mean, I find it fascinating. I came across somebody once and they were basically went into some investments. They met somebody through somebody that I knew, and they're just like loads of negative. She's like, deal didn't go very well. And this will happen. It's just part of you as an individual. And yet, what I found, for example, with that person and other people that have these complaints, they kind of got a habit of this. Turns out that person had invested in something else and lost money. Something else and lost money. Something else and lost money. And so it's just a habitual thing. And when it happens to them, because they've made decisions to make those investments or get involved with this business or buy this product or service, and they've got a habit of doing and making bad decisions, they'll never take responsibility for it. So it's easier to point the finger at other people and go, oh, it's because he told me I should go and do this, or he introduced me to so-and-so, or I read about this product from an article in this newspaper. This newspaper needs to be closed down. I read that once. This lady was like, you've got to close this newspaper down because they shouldn't be endorsing things like that. No, it was just an article. Ultimately, we're adults and we have to make our own decisions. I don't know if anyone can relate to this. I guess what I'm saying to you is, and I've had to, I've been in front of, well, I guess millions over the years of people. And part of that experience as a person teaching, inspiring, or if you're running a business, providing a product or a service, if you've got a very fragile nature and you don't like the fact that some people might not like an opinion you've got, or maybe, I think it was Kate Hudson just recently was talking about, I think it was Bitcoin or something like that. And then she got a load of people criticizing her for that. Somebody else was endorsing a product. I think it was, oh God, what was it? It was like a moisturizer, and then a load of people slammed them and go, oh yeah, this did this, and I got a reaction from, and you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be even talking about this because, other people might get the same reaction. It's very difficult because if one person's had a good experience with something, and for them it worked, and they tried the product, or they went into this investment, or did this due diligence, and somebody else didn't do the same research, or hadn't checked the ingredients, or checked all the small print, and they have a different experience, who do they blame? Well, the reality is it's mirror time. So I think if you're running a business or you're starting up a business and part of what you do is offer a service or you offer a product to people, please accept that part of you doing that is going to be the higher the monkey climbs the more the bum is exposed. And you're just going to have to swallow that pill as part of running that business. How do you manage that? It's entirely up to you, whether you choose to react to everybody that criticizes you. And that's happened in the past. I remember once there was a guy we had to get at an event, we had to get the police involved because he was just saying some crazy stuff. It wasn't so much to do with me, it was about the organization I was speaking for. And actually, it turns out that he was what's called a secret shopper. Now, those of you that run businesses where you might run events online, Zoom get-togethers where people engage with each other, or possibly live events. So there are companies that will send other people into those events that you're running with a view to what's called contrarian marketing, or using secret shop, slightly different phraseology, but they send people in to disrupt people's thinking about your product and service. And then what they do is, by saying something about you or the business that you represent, whether it's your business or somebody else's, and this has happened to me on several occasions. I had a 73-year-old lady stand up at an event. This is going back in 2004 or 5. This business is a scam. You shouldn't do this. Don't go. I think it was property education. I was working with Rich Dad and people like that. You shouldn't do this. I invested with this company and they were great. And it turns out she'd been paid to be there, to stand up, disrupt it in front of the whole audience, and then give people cards out later on. That's scary when you see that stuff going on, because you can't predict that. And you may get that on your Facebook page. You may get that on your YouTube channel. It's happened to me even in the past, and it still comes up occasionally where somebody does this stuff. And, to some extent, you can't control it. You have to just shine through, help people, provide a great service, and just be authentic in who you are, and accept that part of your journey is going to be that people will do that. Same thing with this chap that came up and he ended up getting the police involved. Turns out that in the breaks, in the corridors, at the end of the day, he was giving out his cards, and people were having an opportunity to do investments in property, etc., and learn how to do it. He was saying, don't give your money here. Don't do this. Don't. Come and give your money to me. And we then had complaints afterwards from the delegates, not complaints about us, but saying, we had this person here and he was doing this, and this, and it was quite disruptive. It turned out, we found out it was the very same person that the police were involved with. So I guess what it shows you is that you have to come to the table if you're running a business and be transparent and authentic and provide a great service to people. But please accept that part of what you do, if you introduce people to, here's a contact, you might want to chat to this person, they might end up and go and work with that person. And then if it goes well, great. If it doesn't go as well, you need to make sure that they've signed some paperwork to say, if you meet this person and as a result of meeting me, it's nothing to do with me, you've made your own grown-up decision. I had a situation like that with this person that was really frustrated. I was like, hold on a minute, you did your due diligence, filled all the paperwork in legally, etc., but you still went off and made these decisions. And yet people don't want to take that responsibility. So if you're running a business that provides products and services, be mindful of that. But equally, the other side to it is accept that part of your business has to be that you can't please everybody. You're going to get some customers or some clients that come to the door, they don't want your product and service. That's fine. That's their choice. Equally, if they do, make sure they understand you're grown-ups. If you come into the door here, this is what we do, but we can't control everything. You still have to make your own decisions. Very, very important. Particularly if you're online selling anything, products and services, or if you're providing face-to-face, one-to-one consultations with people, make sure you get your paperwork in line, etc. And just come from the right place. Be authentic. Don't be afraid to go out there and put yourself out there because of the fear of this. And there are many, many great people that I've met that are worried to go into this space, like even this, because somebody might write a comment on the Facebook. And I go, oh shit, what if there's something negative? Well, you know what? That's part of the world. That's who people are. And I think most people see them for who they are, the negative people and the complainers. And, I look for patterns, and I often see the people that complain, actually they're complaining in other places as well. They're complaining about this company, and you'll see them pop up in different places. That's just how they're made up. Unfortunately, weak people or weaker-minded people might look at that and go, oh shit, that's put me off going and buying your product or service. So you've got to find that balance. Comedians at the moment are facing the biggest challenge right now. I mean, I followed comedy for years, whether it's people like Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock. There's some great comedians out there. But they're now being criticized for certain stylistic approaches, which 20, 30 years ago they weren't. But now there's an oversensitivity. And of course, now what do? Do they stay authentic and create their comedy, which they even take the mick out themselves? They take the piss out themselves. They make reference to themselves as well. Or do they navigate very carefully around that, but then the comedy changes? And I think people that are authentic and they follow authentic comedians, they actually can relate to it. I mean, I'm a big fan of, for example, Dave Chappelle. And if you look at his journey, it's been phenomenal. There's that pure authenticity that comes through him. And yet he was ripped apart just recently in the media for being overly making statements, which he's done before, but now suddenly there's an oversensitive part of the marketplace to that. So what do comedians do? Do they step down and we click onto Netflix, or we look on what's happening in London and suddenly there's no comedy shows, there's no TV programs around comedy because they're afraid to say something that might offend somebody? Or do they stay authentic to their art, which is reflecting on life, bringing humor into it without discriminating, because they do it for all types of people, including themselves? And I think that's where I personally come from as a speaker. And, has it upset me? Of course it has over the years. Sometimes people have said or made comments and I've gone, well, actually, you know what? That's not accurate. That's not correct. You're misrepresenting what your experience was, either whether it's to do with me or an organization I work with, for example, or somebody I even know. And that's a frustrating thing. Tony Robbins, for years, has had people say negative stuff about him. Same thing with Robert Kiyosaki, slammed by the press. And yet, if you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, fantastic book. It's changed lives. But, some people don't like it, so they say negative things. So that's my message. It's just an honest share with you. And I think if you're worried about shining your light, don't be worried about shining the light. There's no dark without light. You have to have both in this world. I believe that if you're watching this and you've taken 13 and a half minutes to watch this, you're somebody that's most likely got something that you want to grow in. You wouldn't be even associated with my Facebook page if you weren't at least somebody that wants to learn and evolve as a person, which also tells me you've probably got a great message to share, something that the world needs to hear. Imagine muting that because you're afraid of how somebody might react to you. You can't do it. You just got to be authentic. It's Dr. Rowe, signing out.